Right. So what persuaded us to do something like this? This is a persuasion of how everybody looks at themselves and says, what can I change about my life? What can I change about me? And I can say, okay, here's the formula, but the formula, one formula doesn't work for everybody. You know, I know that, I know that. So I can't tell you this is what's going to work for every one of you. There's different points that I'm going to mention that will be more impressionable upon you than someone else. And other times you'll hear things that will go straight over your head. It might not even apply to you, or you might not even understand it at the particular point in time. So when we get started, let's talk about our lives and how we run our lives and how important it is to understand, if is there a formula for you and me? Is the formula different for men and for women? Obviously, there are there's a few word yeses in the answers there, because a man, the way you were formed, and a woman, the way you were formed, is not exactly the same. We have different parts to us that are different from each other, and we need to remember and keep that in mind. But what we've been doing up until now, and I'm going to give you reasons why I believe that what I believe, and I don't want to convince you to believe anything different, because it's going to depend on yourself and your own level of understanding. And when I use the word education, I'm not talking about school or university education. There's an education that you and I go through throughout our lives. It's called the school of hard knocks. And if you don't learn your lesson, then obviously you're going to learn the hard way. So we don't want to let our lives to go to trial and error. Um, and what we keep on getting flogged with new rules. Okay, now you need to do, for instance, you need to do what do they call this fasting? Intermittent fasting. And people go and eat a big meal at night, and then they go and don't eat anything the next day, and then till late afternoon, early evening. That's called intermittent fasting. Those are new rules. Those are new ideas. And yes, they probably work for anyone that's practicing it, but that's not the original source code was written. And we're going to get into some basics into that right tonight, but we're not going to go into detail because we want to build it up slowly but surely. So we are continuously flogged with new ideas, and the things that you and I learned as children and the things that we're learning today is totally different. But when we go back to the original, so when I'm saying original, what is the oldest text you know of? Is it the Torah? Is it the Veda? Is it the Babylonian text, the Babylonian Talmud? Is it the Egyptian? Is it the Ethiopian text? What is the oldest text that you know of that gives you a formula or answers to life? And does it make sense? It's okay to know something that's old, but if it doesn't make sense to you, I want to give you an example. I had this chat with a guy the other day, and he's an Orthodox. I think he's a Greek Orthodox. He joined the Greek Orthodox because he's got Greek background, and he said when we started talking about the law of God or the laws of God, he wasn't aware that there were more commandments than the Ten Commandments. He didn't realize that there are actually 613 commandments, etc., etc. And we can go into a little bit of this through the course of the course. But what we need to go to is to find out what is are we coded in your DNA and into my DNA? And even since a lot of us, or some of us, have been recoded with vaccines since children, maybe there's a recoding that's taken place that makes us function differently. And every time I remember my dad, when we came back from school and we had these vaccines put in, he gave us some formula to actually kick out that code or that formula, so that we weren't in any way gotten sick after we had taken that. Now, I'm just throwing a few thoughts about here, and I know it's a little controversial in some way or another. But the way you and I grew up, we all have a different experience. We all are different in the way we experience life, and we all have different stories. So we're not going to agree on everything that we see and hear. But whatever you understand that makes sense to you, it starts then with a thought. So while I'm talking to you, you are thinking thoughts. What are those thoughts you are thinking? And you should be taking notes. Somehow you should be taking notes. And taking notes because you realize that there's something, some action that you need to, some answers that you might be getting, and not everything that you hear would be an answer, but it would actually inspire you to find an answer. There's a lot of YouTube videos that we watch these days and inspiring stuff that comes up. But those thoughts become an intention. And then intention becomes an action, and we start expressing words. So if, for instance, you want to be a millionaire, but you are not dressing like a millionaire, it's going to be difficult to dress like a millionaire once you've become one. Or it would be difficult to become a millionaire unless you have the mindset of a millionaire. So there's a lot of people that want something different in their lives, but they don't actually action it. There's no and let's go back to Genesis 1, for instance. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God, and God spoke the Word, and it became action. So he spoke words to create things, to create the earth, to create you and me. And you and I have the same potential, not that we are God, although he did say in Psalms that we are gods. The psalmist mentioned that. But we can be, as Christ said, everything I've done, you can do too. Do you believe that? Do you believe that what he said, that you and I can do everything that we need to, want to, but because you don't really believe it, it won't happen. So basically, every one of us can perform miracles and have performed miracles in our lives. Just think of some of those amazing times in our lives when we just had this belief that something was going to happen. And we even said with our mouths it was going to happen. And then even our actions. So if you believe something good's going to happen tomorrow morning, then you're not going to go with a long face throughout the day. You're going to wake up, you're going to wash your face, you're going to dress up, and you're going to go as if you have an appointment with the goodness that's going to happen, and that will happen. But if you go with a long face and say, you know what, maybe it will happen, it's just going to be another day, then obviously nothing will change. You and I do have a genetic code in us that has the ability to do great things. Now, for instance, now my little PowerPoint presentation went a little bit haywire over here, but if you just take the 10 commandments and read them through, I think a lot of us have missed a few points over here. Missed some of the gist of just what is expected of us to live in a safe. Sorry, folks, I had a little glitch in the matrix, and of course, it's now back again. So we happy. When we're looking at just what is expected now for anyone, if you go back to Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, the first thing that was said to mankind is be fruitful and multiply. In other words, don't be lazy. Go out, do your work, and be faithful in that which you work. Plant seeds, get some cattle, get some sheep, let them have babies, let the babies produce more, and that's what we're doing with money today. But because we are living in cities, or in a city life, we don't have space to have cattle and a lot of plants. And that limits us to how fruitful we can become. So we have to go and work someone else's field, someone else's job, someone else's business to be fruitful and to multiply. And so that's the basic. All of these things are just basic. Why do people get divorced? It's because somebody was unfaithful in the marriage. Why do people go to jail? Because they coveted somebody else's stuff. How many times a day do you tell the truth? Or do you tell part of the truth? Do you tell something to make others feel better? All of this influences our code. This influences the way you and I, the joy that you and I have. And when people look at you, everyone looks at each other and says, does this person have boundaries? Do you and I have boundaries? Do we have limitations on what we allow ourselves to do or others to do to us? All of that is very important. So our life edit program is about tweaking certain things in your life. You and I we do editing on it. If you in front of a computer, you're constantly editing. You're constantly making changes. Sometimes it is small changes. The course we did in Cape Town, we showed people, and I will on some of the future sessions, I'll put my camera on, link it up, and then do some demonstrations on things you can do to do. So, like for instance, if you're struggling with a heart problem, there's a point on your hand, on your palm, that you can press as soon as you feel like your heart is not feeling great. There are some remedies that you can take. I'm on a boere raad, these old remedies advice group where people say, what do I do if I've got a blood sugar problem? And the first thing I'm the quickest to type, because I say, you need cayenne pepper capsules. You need to take cayenne pepper at least twice a day before your meals. If you're feeling like your blood sugar is dropping, that's what you need to do. And it works within minutes. It stabilizes your blood sugar. Now, I'm not giving you any health or medical advice, but what I'm telling you is can be life changing in a life-threatening situation. There are many times that we stress because things happen to us and it's not necessary to. My wife is sitting right next to me. She's going to tell you a short story about what happened to her when she felt like she was tired one day, and then when she woke up, she couldn't see.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Yeah, it was actually funny enough. I spoke to somebody about that just today, just this morning. I told somebody the story, and the thing is that one Sunday morning I made us a nice big quiche and a salad, and I do remember I had a lot of chutney on it, and I didn't feel well straight after I've eaten, and Reuel said to just go lie down, and it felt like I fell into a very deep sleep. I was exhausted. I did not have energy of a day old. And it also felt like I slept for hours. And when I woke up, I couldn't see. I opened my eyes, but it was just black. And I thought I went blind. And immediately I told him, please just take me to the hospital. He refused. He said, I'm not taking you to the hospital. I said, I want to go to the hospital. He says, you've got a blood sugar problem. I said, I've never had a blood sugar problem. And I insisted he must take me to the hospital. He said, well, just stop. Do you know what they're going to do at the hospital? They're going to inject you. They're going to do all these tests. They're going to run the test. It's a process. And you might even feel worse afterwards going through this whole process. He says, I can sort you out. Just trust me. So being all flustered, and also scared. I mean, it's quite a scary event when you wake up and you open your eyes and there's just nothing. You can't see at all. So Reuel asked me if I had any cayenne pepper in the house. I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, you have a choice of how you're going to take this. You can put it in your mouth and swallow water, or you could put it with some, he found some juice in the fridge. Um, or he said, I can put it in a little bit of yogurt and just eat it. But he says, we need to get it in your body like immediately. So, of course, I chose the water option. He took about a half a flat teaspoon and he put it in my mouth, and I had some water with it. I must say, at that point in time, I was so desperate because I really just wanted to be able to see. And it was between 20 and about 45 minutes, I completely regained my vision. And he asked me whether anybody in the family has diabetes. And I said, of course, my mom suffers of sugar every now and again, but nothing serious. But my dad is type 2 diabetic, and he takes tablets for that. And only then I started connecting the dots. And till today, it's been 11 years, I'm still managing my blood sugar levels completely with cayenne pepper, nothing else. And I know I can't eat McDonald's. If I eat McDonald's, my blood sugar spikes quite a bit. I do have the tester, I test, but the cayenne pepper is really a lifesaver. And the thing is, I think where the life edit comes in is that when you edit something, look, I love editing documents, reading through documents and making some changes, making some new alternative suggestions as to, grammar, etc. And I believe our lives are like that. It doesn't matter where you are, if it's emotional, if it's physical, if it is um, emotional, physical, what was the other one? Spiritual. We can edit. I mean, I didn't know. I would have gone to the hospital, but Reuel suggested an alternative. So, what is life edit? What is editing? It's really just finding an alternative for what you were going to use in the first place. And I really love the concept of life editing, or being able to make changes, because those changes is what at the end of the day makes huge impact. I could have been on uh, sugar tablets. I could have by now, and any chemical uh, medication. Look, don't get me wrong. I do believe that medication and antibiotics and penicillin and all those things, at some point when the illness is has developed to a great extent, that in order to get a rapid change or to break an illness quickly, that medicine may be necessary. A hospital may be necessary. If you're in a car accident, you need to get to a hospital. You need to go to ICU. But folks, I just believe for as long as we can still make those edits ourselves, make those changes and different alternatives and suggestions within amongst ourselves, we are still in a very good place. So I'm not saying that the medical is not good at all. To the contrary, it has its place, but so does the life edit. So does the things that we do on a daily basis, and ultimately choose. It's up to us how we want to live our lives. We wake up every single morning. We can choose what we want to do. We can choose how we want to do it. We can choose how we feel about things in our lives. And I think we often forget that. We forget that we do have a choice. But I always say that with the choice comes the responsibility of making the decision. Choosing is one thing, but once you actually make that decision, there's an action that follows after that. And that's where I believe Reuel and I want to take you with the Life Edit program, is to help you to get to the action part.
Yeah, I started pretty much early in my life when I was 18 years old, and that's 35 years ago. I started this journey into health. And one of the things I discovered during this time, because my dad was a homeopath and he died at 88, and I learned a lot from him, and I learned from the age of 18, 35 years ago, when I started into herbal medicines, that people asked me to come out to them to give advice to their family with. And here's an example. I was 19 years old. Somebody said to me, they want me to go and visit this family because the son, who's 16 years old, went into a coma twice in 6 months. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? No, we want you to go and visit and see if you can give advice, solve the problem. I said, look, I'm not a doctor. I always you have to use a disclaimer, because even if you've got all the medical knowledge and more medical knowledge than anyone else, if you don't have that certificate behind your name, I've got a lot of certificates, but they're not qualified in South Africa. But anyway, be it as it may, I went out, I visited this family, and this young boy, he was slightly overweight for his age. And I asked him, I said, do you remember, because he had a coma early in the morning, I don't know if it was at school or before school, or if it was school holidays, but I said, what did you eat or drink that morning before the coma? And he thought for a few minutes and he said, I had a tin of condensed milk. Now I know exactly what's going through your mind now. You like your mouth is hanging open. You're thinking, oh, but I've done this many times in my life. Yeah. He had a tin of condensed milk. His parents both, we sat there for quite a few seconds with nobody saying a single word. And then I said to him, okay, what happened? Was there anything different, or what was the significance of the second time you were in a coma? And he said, I had a big bacon and eggs breakfast. And of course, then we got down to the first thing, the first coma he went into. And I said, look, when you take condensed milk, it's very high dairy and sugar content. And the sugar content shuts off the oxygen to your brain. In fact, dairy shuts down your oxygen intake into your body. So sugar makes it worse, because sugar shuts, especially white sugar, it shuts off the oxygen to your brain, so you're restless all the time. You can't concentrate. And then, of course, it makes you, if you want to be diabetic and die quickly, you take a tin of condensed milk. But anyway, after I had this chat with him, I asked, did the doctors actually ask your son what he ate or drank? And they said, no, they never thought. They just did all the tests on him and they couldn't find why he went into a coma. So I said, well, that's a good doctor will ask good questions, and sometimes simple. We want to keep everything simple in life. We don't want to complicate anything, because when you complicate things, it's because you don't want to believe it. But simplicity gives you a lot of answers. Anyway, at that point in my life, because I asked the right questions that I felt in my heart and my spirit to ask, the parents just said to me, bring the nutrition that you think our son needs, and we will pay for it. That's how desperate they were. They weren't, sometimes people used to say, just, our budget is 500 Rand or whatever. But they just said, bring what you think he needs. And I wrote down exactly what the nutrition was meant for, and what he needed to be taking, and why he needed to be taking. He needed greens. At that time, I gave him spirulina, and I gave him lecithin. I gave him lecithin, which is actually like helps break down the what do you call it, the fat in his bloodstream, because the more overweight you are, the thanks for the music. Um, the more overweight you are, the more you're going to struggle with, weight problems, and with sugar problems and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean to say that thin people don't struggle with diabetes or sugar problems. And we hear the words hangry. When you're hungry and you become angry because your blood sugar has dropped, and that's called hangry. And a lot of people I see young children of like 4 to 6 to 8 years old, they come home and they become impossible. Then I asked the parents, I said, why, when last did this child eat? No, they ate this morning, or they might have eaten late morning. I said, well, this child needs something to eat, and that will stabilize their blood sugar. And then they give them white bread. That's one of the worst things, because white bread will spike your blood sugar that your head goes dizzy. And so anytime you're eating unnatural things, there's nothing wrong with bread, but not shop bread. Shop bread has got about 25 ingredients in. You don't even read the ingredients, because they're not written on the bread. If you had normal sourdough bread, that would be a much better idea. Anyway, so tonight's session is just about getting to understand that there are little minor things that you can do in your life to maximize your energy levels, maximize your life. I mean, everybody today wants to make money. We all want to be better people. We all want to have better health. We all want to be fit. I think one of the guys on this call, he's super fit. But what is it that you can identify in your life, your diet, your spiritual life, that can make it just a little change that can make such a difference that you actually become the person that you were meant to be? If you wake up in the morning and you aren't full of joy, then there's something that you keep doing wrong. If all your life is about going to work, eating, going home, sleeping, going to work, eating, going home, sleeping, then obviously you're not making any progress at this point in time. And you are kind of content, but you are looking at yourself in this mirror of life, and this mirror of life is telling you that you're off track. So, what are the tweaks that over the next few weeks we're going to discuss? All the tweaks, the changes, the edits, that we're going to use modern words so that everybody can understand that there are things, slight changes that you can do, but it will start making sense to you should you start actioning it. And you're going to ask yourself, where is your problem? It's going to depend how you were designed. What is your design? The time that you were designed has an influence. The date you were designed, the date you were born, all has an influence on your being, on your source code. And there's plenty of hints. The Bible is full of hints. And I will just mention one or two things tonight just to get you to understand, to go and do your homework yourself. Because when I was a child, I based all my understanding on what was read to me either by my parents or by my pastor. Up until the time I started reading for myself. And then I realized, but the way life is, it's not how, if your parents wanted you to become a doctor or a dentist or a teacher, what happened? Did you become that? No, because in your spirit you felt that's not your life path. So each one of our life paths are just different, that we need the change. So maybe you know that you are slightly off track. You want to get your ship on course, and you want to get something more personalized for yourself. If you had to go after this call and look in the mirror, now if you don't have a mirror nearby, all you need to do is switch your cell phone's camera on and put it on reverse camera and look at yourself. Talk to yourself. It doesn't seem normal today to look at yourself, especially if you're a man. But see if you can face yourself. Face yourself and look at yourself and be honest with yourself. Are you feeling like you're 18? I know many days when I'm walking down the street, I feel in my spirit I'm 18 years old. But when I look in the mirror, I know I'm not 18 years old. I had the confidence some days that like an 18-year-old, but I can't run like I did when I was 18 years old. So we all have to face the facts. And so one of the things about the source code is, and it's something that duplicates itself in the Old and the New Testament, is 12 tribes, 12 disciples. And do yourself a favor tonight, go and read the 12 tribes' personalities all in one chapter. And try and figure out which one of those personalities do you have? And what kind of personality are you? It would be interesting to see your feedback on that. It is very, very profound. So what we need to do, ask ourselves, have we and are we missing the point? Because if we're missing the point of life, we're going to go till the end of the life, and we're going to end of our lives and feel we're miserable because we've not made progress. But if we don't know what the original text, so I can tell you, getting back to the same story earlier about intermittent fasting. Is intermittent fasting an ancient thing? Fasting is. I fasted, my first time I fasted was 7 days, and then I waited several weeks, and I then did a 14-day, and several weeks I did 28-day, and then I finally did a 40-day fast a few times. And I was in a church convention where a doctor came to me and said, "That's not good for you. You shouldn't be fasting." And she was learning to become a doctor. I said, "What do you know? You're just a learner doctor in a modern world. You have not learned what the ancient people did and how they did it. And, oh, well, it's not good for your body." I said, "Well, that's why it's explained to you in detail in the ancient texts. And I'm proving it for myself." And it worked. So hopefully some of this has made sense to you, and maybe we are on this little journey together. We actually promised the lady that in Cape Town that we're going to do this for free over the next few weeks, every Wednesday night, and we will then share the link and the video for anyone to share with their friends and family. And we're going to go through a lot of different things that are sometimes profound and sometimes um, common sense, and sometimes so simple, um, simple to understand. So, would you like to say something to the
Yeah,
people?
I think sometimes it's just facing the fear. A lot of these things might be, you know, I think we grow up and certain things are just taboo, you know. Don't go there, don't look at that, don't think of this, don't read this, don't, and then, you have doubt already in who you are, in your DNA, and I think that's a big thing that one should realize, that in order for you to become unstuck, a lot of us feel so stuck in our ways, or have people, you hear people say every now and again, yeah, then I'm back to square one. And ultimately that is what happens to us, because there's so many factors that can play a role. And I think what will happen is, we will realize that often we have to fear the giant that's standing in front of us, and how